A sealed envelope, untouched for years, lay inside the Queen's private vault beneath Windsor. What began as routine legal housekeeping quickly spiraled into a palace bombshell. The contents? A trust fund. But not just any trust fund, one with Zara Tindall's name etched in a clause so confidential even Charles wasn't meant to find it this soon. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. It all began with a quiet archival audit of Queen Elizabeth's private belongings, an operation intended to catalogue what remained of her personal estates following her passing. Inside a mahogany cabinet, deep within the sovereign vault, lay a cream envelope bearing no royal seal, only a faint handwritten note, to be opened in the event of Zara's question. The estate team, initially confused, passed the envelope through to the Queen's private legal advisor. What they uncovered left the room in stunned silence. Within the packet were 2 documents, a signed personal letter from Her Majesty and a financial directive referencing what she called the Autumn Clause. That clause, long rumoured to be part of the Queen's discreet contingency plans, revealed something never before disclosed: a trust fund, drawn entirely from her personal estate, not the Crown estate or duchy holdings, but from private investments, assets, and international accounts, known only to a handful of confidants. The designated beneficiary of this trust was not King Charles, not Prince William, not even Princess Anne. It was Zara Phillips Tindall, named in full, with the phrase for her loyalty unshaken scrawled beside it. A second document bore a stamped header for ZT only. This sparked alarm among the auditors, as such phrasing, rare in official royal documentation, implied not only secrecy, but deliberate omission from the line of succession's financial architecture. The document outlined multiple disbursements, trustees sworn to silence, and a clause that stated the fund could not be redistributed under any sovereign directive. The Queen, it seemed, had structured this fund in a way that not even the reigning monarch could undo. The royal legal team scrambled to verify the authenticity, and within hours, the gravity of the situation had reached the highest levels of the palace. The implications were staggering, not merely because Zara was named, but because no one else was. Camilla, ever present and recently emboldened in her public role, was absent. William, groomed to inherit the weight of the crown, was missing. Even Anne, the Queen's most trusted daughter, was nowhere in sight. As word spread within palace corridors, tension began to thicken. How had this gone unnoticed for so long? Why Zara? Why now? The whispers began. Had the Queen been planning something deeper, something more personal that flew beneath the radar of royal protocol? For a woman known for precision and foresight, the Queen's decision to name Zara and no other echoed like a bell toll across the monarchy's grand halls. As the royal household scrambled for answers, the sense of unease wasn't just about money, it was about meaning, about legacy, and about which loyalties the Queen truly honoured when the world wasn't watching. But the discovery was only the beginning. What followed next would throw the entire royal household into emotional freefall. For years, Zara Tindall stood on the sidelines of royalty, present but unrecognised. No title, no security, no public favour. Yet behind her calm demeanour was a woman quietly carrying the weight of legacy, loyalty and rejection. And now, the world finally knows why she waited in silence. From the very beginning, Zara's path diverged from the traditional royal blueprint. Born into the monarchy but deliberately kept outside its gilded grip, she was never styled as princess. This wasn't oversight, it was orchestration. Queen Elizabeth, in one of her most controversial maternal decisions, chose to raise Zara free of the constraints and obligations that shackled other royal children. But with that freedom came exile from the spotlight. While William and Harry were paraded as heirs of a new generation, and even Beatrice and Eugenie were publicly embraced, Zara's life unfolded in the margins. Each engagement, each family photograph, each public celebration served as a painful reminder she was always there, yet never truly included. What few realized, however, was that this emotional distance came not from a lack of merit, but a burden of strategy. The Queen, known for her silence but revered for her foresight, had carved a space for Zara beyond public comprehension. While others saw her as uninvolved, Zara was quietly doing what others couldn't, shielding the monarchy's legacy without seeking praise or power. She defended it in private, stood by Anne through internal disputes, and refused to exploit her heritage for fame or fortune. She became the monarchy's quiet stronghold, weathering criticism, bearing comparison after comparison, and never lashing out. Even within the palace, her loyalty was the subject of whispered admiration. In moments where others faltered, Zara stood firm, unshaken. She never distanced herself from her family during scandals, never broke trust with the institution, and never sought to capitalize on royal drama. All the while, she carried with her a cryptic memory, a sentence the Queen once spoke during a quiet family gathering. "Zara will understand when the time comes." At the time, it seemed vague, almost poetic. But in light of the trust fund revelation, those words now carry the weight of destiny. The trust wasn't just about money, it was about validation. A silent acknowledgement from a grandmother who saw what the world refused to, that Zara had earned her place not through entitlement, but through endurance. She bore the legacy without expectation, and in return, the Queen left her something no title could ever match: a sovereign trust of faith, sealed in private, unleashed in public. For Zara, vindication didn't come with applause. It came with silence shattered, legacy affirmed, and the beginning of a storm that would rattle every corner of the royal household. And that time had come, but with vindication came fury from those who never saw it coming. When King Charles was handed the Queen's private estate documents, what he read ignited a storm behind palace doors. Not only was Zara the sole beneficiary, she was named in a way that bypassed even royal protocol. His mother had made a move he never expected, and never approved. The moment Charles read the contents of the Queen's sealed directive, his composure faltered. In a royal family trained in control, rage is rarely visible. But that day, behind the thick doors of the private council chamber, it was unmistakable. The trust, which had already shaken the legal foundations of the palace, now sent shockwaves through the very core of his authority. To him, this wasn't just about money. It was about sovereignty, control, lineage. His mother, even in death, had made a decision that undermined his crown. He demanded answers from the senior estate managers. How had this fund escaped notice? Who had authorized it? And why had no one flagged the clause that stripped even the monarch of intervention rights? Charles's fury turned toward the Queen's longtime solicitor, a man he once trusted implicitly. That trust fractured instantly. The solicitor, however, stood firm. His voice, reportedly unwavering, reminded Charles that the Queen had drafted the trust in full clarity, witnessed and documented outside the royal chain of command. There were no gaps in legality, no loopholes to exploit. Her instructions had been airtight, final, and most provocatively untouchable. The king was left cornered by the one person he never thought would override him, his mother. He tried to reason, then negotiate. When that failed, he threatened a delay in public acknowledgement. He feared that honoring the trust would establish a dangerous precedent, one where sovereigns could designate heirs outside the public structure of monarchy. One where blood wasn't the only currency of royal worth. Word of the confrontation leaked faster than anyone expected. Royal aides whispered about the closed-door meeting that ended in silence. Staff members claimed Charles spent hours in isolation afterward, reviewing his mother's private letters, searching for a motive, a clue, anything that would justify what felt like betrayal. But there was none. Just Zara's name, Zara's inheritance, Zara's legacy. And when he turned to Anne, expecting her to intervene or offer an alliance, she gave him nothing but calm defiance. "Mother knew exactly what she was doing," she said. "Not a word more." That sentence haunted him, because deep down Charles knew it too. His mother hadn't acted in confusion or sentiment. She had acted with absolute clarity. And if that were true, then this wasn't just a fund. It was a message, a reshuffling of royal favor written in ink that could not be erased. Charles, already wrestling with fragile public confidence, now had to face a scandal that would cast his leadership in doubt, especially if he hesitated to honor his mother's will. But the truth wouldn't stay hidden for long. In a palace where silence rules, someone was about to speak. A handwritten note from Princess Anne was quietly passed to Zara one morning, unofficial, personal, and powerfully revealing. It wasn't just about money. It was about a promise, and a legacy her mother left behind that no one else was meant to touch. Anne had said little in public since the trust revelation, but behind palace walls, her silence carried weight. She had always been the Queen's quiet enforcer, disciplined, unflinching, and loyal to the crown over emotion. Yet in this moment, it was emotion that triumphed. The note she sent to Zara, penned in her famously sharp cursive, was not legal. It wasn't political. It was personal. A letter between sisters, not by blood, but by burden. Anne wrote of strengths, Zara's strength, the strength she had shown growing up, wit, tout a title, without the cushion of ceremony, yet never once stepping away from the family. She acknowledged the pain Zara endured in silence, the way she held the family together when the world crumbled after Diana's death, the way she calmed the storm of her cousin's grief without demanding recognition for her presence. In the letter, Anne recalled a conversation with the Queen shortly before her passing. Zara was her joy, she wrote, unburdened and unbent, the only one who never asked for a crown but carried its weight anyway. The words struck deep. Zara, who had until now remained composed, reportedly broke down upon reading them. Not because of the trust fund, not because of the scandal it stirred, but because for the first time, someone acknowledged the invisible sacrifices she made for a family that rarely looked her way. The emotional cost of that silence had carved itself into her life for years, and now, the one person she admired most had seen it, understood it, and rewarded it. And through Anne, that validation became even more sacred. The letter closed with a warning. Understated but unmistakable, do not let them diminish this. It was her wish, and her wishes were always deliberate. It was a line meant not just for comfort but for protection. The palace had begun whispering about the Queen's mental clarity near the end. Detractors, quietly aligned with Camilla's camp, insinuated that the trust could have been a mistake or an oversight from an aging monarch. Anne confronted those whispers head-on. In a tense internal meeting, she stood alone and unwavering. She dismissed every suggestion of confusion or error, reminding the room that her mother had been more mentally alert in her final weeks than many who sat in that chamber. Her statement was delivered with the same cold precision the Queen had been known for, and it silenced the room. Still, words alone weren't enough. Anne's voice carried emotional weight, but Charles held legal authority. The trust was valid, but its announcement, its management, and its implications for the broader monarchy, those decisions still rested with the king. Zara had a moral victory, a private blessing from her aunt, and a growing wave of public sympathy, but she didn't yet have security. She didn't yet have confirmation, and within the palace's gilded walls where protocol could override passion, nothing was final until the institution made it so. But emotional validation wasn't enough. Legal power was still in Charles's hands until the palace made a shocking move. In a stunning twist, palace legal advisors, after weeks of internal review, released a public confirmation. The trust was not only real but irrevocable. Its terms had been cemented in a sovereign clause protected by the Queen herself. Zara wasn't just the heir, she was the only one. The statement came without warning, catching even seasoned royal watchers off guard. Buckingham Palace issued a brief but explosive press release confirming the authenticity and legality of the Queen's private trust. What had once been whispered as rumour now stood tall as truth. It was written in precise language. This trust, established by Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, is an independently governed sovereign act, non-negotiable and immune to crown redistribution. The phrasing alone sent a shiver through the monarchy. For decades, every asset, very intention, had ultimately passed through the filter of royal succession. Not this time. The Queen had operated outside the usual realm of inheritance law and royal expectation, and she had done so flawlessly. Behind the scenes, it was revealed that an independent financial firm, one not directly tied to the crown, had overseen the structuring of the fund under direct instruction from the Queen. The process had begun quietly years before her death, with layers of legal insulation built to ensure that no reigning monarch, not even her own son, could reverse it. There was no clause for revision, no clause for redistribution. Zara Tindall was named in every page, and nowhere did Camilla, William, or any senior working royal appear. This wasn't a shared inheritance, this was an intentional divergence, a sovereign declaration bypassing status, title, and expectation. Legal scholars were quick to weigh in, citing obscure yet binding precedents that protected sovereign acts from parliamentary or dynastic override. One line from the press conference stood out above all: "This is a sovereign act, and stands above succession." It echoed like thunder across news headlines, social platforms, and palace halls. Zara had not only inherited a trust, she had inherited a moment that redefined her place in the royal order. For the first time in her life, her name stood above the power games of court politics, anchored in law that could not be undone. But power, even when legal, comes at a cost. As public support for Zara swelled, a different kind of storm began to brew within the palace. Camilla's circle, already tense from the Queen's apparent snub, erupted behind closed doors. Whispers of betrayal grew louder. Questions about why the Queen had excluded the Queen Consort's family began to circulate, with some aides even daring to suggest the decision had been rushed or clouded. It didn't matter. The law was now clear, and that clarity had consequences. Security around Zara's estate was reportedly doubled overnight. Media vans lined the outskirts of her private home. Threats, both real and political, began to surface. But Zara didn't blink. The validation had come, and it came not from tabloids or tributes, but from the throne itself. She had been chosen. Not ceremonially, not symbolically, legally, irrevocably chosen. But while Zara was gaining ground, others in the family were quietly plotting a countermove. Camilla's closest allies were blindsided. For a woman who had carefully consolidated her influence across royal institutions, this exclusion hit deep, and the reaction was swift. Whisper campaigns began. Dignitaries were lobbied, and a quiet threat began to form: undermine Zara before she claims more. The walls of Clarence House were said to reverberate with tension the moment the palace's confirmation of the trust fund hit the press. While Camilla maintained a calm public face, those within her private circle revealed a far different story. A leaked audio clip, never formally verified, but whispered to be real, reportedly captured Camilla in a furious tirade, calling the Queen's decision a deliberate slight and questioning how such a colossal shift could have been kept from her. In her view, this wasn't just a blow to her status, it was an orchestrated attempt to elevate someone outside the accepted hierarchy, and that, for Camilla, was unforgivable. Within hours, her team had mobilized. The strategy wasn't direct confrontation, it was quiet corrosion. A call went out to trusted aides and sympathetic members of the House of Lords, suggesting that the Queen's mental capacity in her final years should be re-examined. They didn't need to win in court, just sow enough doubt to delay, to discredit, to destabilize. The whispers grew louder, hinting that the trust was drafted when the Queen was no longer fully aware. A cold strategy, but effective, and it put pressure squarely back on Charles. If he allowed this trust to stand uncontested, it could signal a dangerous loss of control from the throne. Yet if he challenged it, he'd be accusing his own mother of failing to know her mind, an act that would ripple through public opinion like fire on dry grass. In the middle of this war sat Beatrice and Eugenie, both loyal to the crown, both close to Camilla, but also quietly admiring of Zara. Their silence was deafening. Neither chose a side, but their hesitation was read as betrayal by both. Behind the scenes, Zara's allies were already moving. Trusted members of Anne's household issued orders to shut down any internal inquiry linked to the trust. Attempts to access archived correspondence were denied. Any route Camilla's camp tried to exploit was met with a legal dead end or bureaucratic silence. It was clear someone powerful was backing Zara, and they were not afraid. The final blow came quietly, with Princess Anne herself. In a closed-door exchange, she approached Camilla not as a diplomat, but as a daughter defending her mother's final wish. With calm but piercing finality, Anne delivered the warning: play this wrong, and you'll lose more than just favor. It wasn't a threat, it was a prophecy. Because Camilla, in trying to protect her legacy, was now standing in direct opposition to the very woman the Queen had chosen as her silent heir. The ground was shifting beneath her feet. But the most explosive twist wasn't about Zara's past, it was what she intended to do next with the trust. Zara could have walked away richer, quieter, and above the storm. But in a move that stunned her critics and silenced her doubters, she revealed her plans, and they weren't selfish. This wasn't just a financial victory, it was a mission of royal restoration. While palace insiders scrambled to manage optics and whispers turned to roars, Zara emerged from the shadows with an announcement that changed the tone of the entire narrative. Instead of retreating with her newly secured wealth, she declared that a significant portion of the trust would be allocated toward a cause deeply rooted in her identity: equestrian youth programs across the UK. It was a tribute not only to her own journey, but to the Queen's love for horses, tradition, and quiet strength. The gesture didn't just reflect grace, it struck a chord. The initiative promised access, funding, and opportunity for disadvantaged youth, many of whom had never imagined a place within Britain's elite sporting world. Suddenly, Zara's inheritance was no longer about privilege, it was about purpose. And that purpose didn't stop there. In an untelevised but widely whispered meeting at Kensington Palace, Zara and Catherine sat down behind closed doors. What they discussed was never officially confirmed, but days later, both camps released aligned statements, a joint commitment to preserve Queen Elizabeth's legacy through acts of accessible dignity. Shortly after, Zara announced the founding of a private charity in her grandmother's name dedicated to rural wellness, equine therapy, and youth development. But what set the royal establishment ablaze was her decision to dedicate a wing of the Queen's private Scottish estate to public health and mental wellness services. A royal property, long restricted to the elite, was now being transformed into a sanctuary for ordinary citizens. No pageantry, no PR spin, just impact. The move struck a powerful emotional chord with the public. Polls reflected an unprecedented surge in support for Zara, with headlines shifting from scandal to admiration almost overnight. She gave her first major interview days later, tearful yet composed, where she spoke about responsibility, resilience, and redemption. "This trust," she said, "isn't just mine. It's what she believed I would protect, not hoard." Her words echoed across the nation. It wasn't just a response. It was a rebuke of everything her critics had assumed. And behind the scenes, another unexpected hand reached out. Prince William, whose silence had been interpreted by many as cautious neutrality, sent Zara a private letter. It was later leaked, intentionally or not. In it, he wrote, "You've reminded us what this family should stand for: dignity, service, legacy. Gran would be proud." That single sentence reshaped the dynamic inside the monarchy. Because William, the future king, had not only acknowledged her place, he'd affirmed it. But as Zara rose, another storm approached from a completely different direction, one that could threaten the entire monarchy's future. Just when peace seemed possible, a buried clause was found tucked behind the Queen's original letter, obscured within estate footnotes. It named a secondary beneficiary in the event of Zara's refusal. And that name? One no one expected, and one that now poses a dangerous question about loyalty. The clause had gone unnoticed in the first wave of legal reviews, buried within footnotes attached to an older draft of the Queen's instructions, never marked for public disclosure. But a private solicitor, cross-referencing archival notes for compliance, flagged it with quiet alarm. It outlined a rare contingency: should Zara Tindall decline full authority over the trust or delegate significant parts of it outside family oversight, a secondary heir would be activated. And that name was as shocking as the clause itself: Lady Louise Windsor, Zara's cousin, the daughter of Prince Edward, and the only other royal grandchild deliberately raised without a title. The similarities were undeniable, but the implications were seismic. Within hours of the clause being discovered, speculation erupted that Zara, facing media chaos, internal pressure, and relentless surveillance, had considered sharing or even reducing her role in the trust's management. If true, the backup clause wasn't just legal, it was live. The Queen, it now appeared, had designed a quiet succession plan not just for the throne, but for her legacy itself. Louise had always remained in the background, barely giving interviews, often overlooked. But now, she was the Queen's silent alternative, and that revelation stoked flames that had only just begun to die down. Inside the palace, tension between Zara and Prince Edward grew rapidly. He publicly remained composed, but aides reported a shift in tone, a subtle withdrawal from supportive gestures. The idea that his daughter had been positioned as a contingency by the Queen raised questions neither he nor Zara seemed ready to answer. Was this trust never meant for just one person, or had the Queen seen a need for a fallback in case the storm surrounding Zara proved too much? The media pounced on the uncertainty. Articles circulated framing Lady Louise as the quiet one, the unblemished royal, the last untouched heir. With every headline, pressure mounted on both women, one now questioned for her strength, the other celebrated for her silence. William and Anne, sensing the danger of internal fracture, called an emergency meeting. The goal was unity, but the room was fraught with unspoken mistrust. Would Zara hold the line? Would Louise remain in the shadows? Anne reportedly reminded everyone that the Queen had not written a replacement plan lightly, and that honouring her memory meant not turning contingency into conflict. Still, the room was divided. Every glance between Zara and Edward carried weight. Every silence from Louise felt louder than words. And then came Louise's only public response. Outside St. George's Chapel, as reporters called her name and demanded answers, she paused, smiled faintly, and said only, "What's written is written." With that single line, she shifted the narrative again, neither confirming nor denying her role, but cementing her presence in the unfolding drama. It wasn't a power grab. It was a quiet acceptance of possibility. With revelations exploding and royal tensions flaring, the final chapter would see a private woman thrust into public war. Zara Tindall stood alone outside the palace gates as cameras swarmed. What began as a sealed envelope had become a national reckoning. Some hailed her as the Queen's true successor in spirit. Others warned this would deepen divisions the monarchy might never recover from. But one truth remains: the Queen chose Zara, and that choice cannot be undone. The moment was raw, heavy with the weight of legacy and consequence. Just hours earlier, the palace's official archivist stepped forward during an unscheduled press briefing and delivered a final, indisputable confirmation. Queen Elizabeth's intentions regarding the trust had been not only legal, but personal, profound, and irreversible. The wording of the archival documents left no ambiguity. Zara's name had been hand-selected, emphasized, and underlined in a private addendum accompanied by the Queen's own signature. Her wishes were not open to interpretation. They were to be fulfilled as written, without delay, without revision. As the news reached the public, crowds gathered near the palace in an emotional show of support. It was no longer about funds or legality, it was about principle. People came bearing handwritten signs, portraits of the late Queen, and flowers not in mourning but in solidarity. Many wept openly, others simply stood still, heads bowed, as Zara emerged with quiet resolve to address the nation. What had once been a woman known for her silence in the royal arena was now the central voice in a storm she never asked for but would never abandon. Inside Parliament, the fallout was immediate. Members from both sides demanded an inquiry not into Zara herself, but into the broader structure of royal finances. How many other secrets had been kept? How many other private reserves had been quietly passed down or protected beyond scrutiny? What the Queen had done for Zara now forced the institution to confront its own shadows. What was once only whispered in corridors was now spoken aloud in chambers of law. The monarchy, for all its grandeur, was not beyond question. Across the media landscape, commentators began drawing comparisons too powerful to ignore. The term "the new Diana moment" surged online and across newspaper columns. But this time, it wasn't a story of exile. It was one of quiet elevation. Royal biographers noted the symbolism. A woman once left outside the royal circle, now chosen to carry forward something sacred. And in the most striking image of the day, Catherine, Princess of Wales, stood silently at Zara's side. No words were exchanged, none were needed. Her presence was the endorsement that shattered any lingering doubt. It was unity, and it was unmistakable. Then came Zara's final words, soft, steady, and impossible to forget. "I didn't ask for this, but I will honor it." And with that, she turned and walked away from the podium, not toward royalty, but toward responsibility. She hadn't campaigned for this role. She hadn't clawed for relevance. It had been placed in her hands by the Queen herself. A gesture of trust, a transfer of legacy, a crown not of gold, but of burden and now purpose. As history reorders itself before our eyes, one fact is certain: nothing inside those palace walls will ever be the same again. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.